Hello. Today we're going to have a look at a very fascinating ink, and the ink was in this bottle. This bottle looks fairly ragged, that's all my fault. A very kind viewer purchased a couple of bottles of this ink, and he was kind enough to send me one so that I could put it in Inkcyclopedia. Thanks a lot, that's extremely kind, because this is an ink that's discontinued and that many people like. We're talking about Sheaffer Script King's Gold. It actually says King's Gold without an apostrophe on the label, but I'm sure they meant the king his gold. I got this bottle, I was unable to open it. It was terrible. I tried everything, hot water, grippy material, and it just didn't work. So I hated ruining the bottle, but in my despair, I just punched a hole into the cap, the lid there, and I siphoned out the ink. It was the only thing I could do. I put it in a little sample file, and of course then I could just open up the bottle like there was nothing going on, which is extremely annoying, but it happens. Sorry about ruining the bottle. This ink is a gold ink. It's a very unique color, and I see why people are so enthusiastic about it, and it makes you wonder why exactly it was discontinued. I'm going to have a look at the ink. I hope this is going to be useful. Don't think you can purchase this in any normal store. You may have to look online if you really want it. And that's all there's to it. So I hope that's going to be useful, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye. Okay, guys, here we go with Sheaffer Script King's Gold. Let's start with a bit of fine writing. The quick brown fox jumped over the king's gold. This was completely illegible. My apologies. But the ink is quite light, so in this camera you probably can't see it anyway. If you have complaints, please send them to seehowmuchwecare@fbgeeks.com. The quick brown fox jumps over the king's, better but still illegible, gold. Instead of picking up my cap, I pick up a whole different pen. There are too many pens on my desk, apparently. Broad. The quick brown fox jumps over the king's gold. Italic. The quick brown fox jumps over the king's gold. Now what you have here is a very fascinating ink. Let me just do the This pen always makes inks look a bit odd, and I really clean them very well after each use. I would focus on this bit of the writing that's closer to the others in color. I don't know what this is, but it's a little odd. Okay, a very fascinating ink. I'm going to do my first of the 3 passes so that I can talk while those dry. Very fascinating. This is truly a golden orange. It's neither truly yellow nor truly orange, it's something in between. Very fascinating. I think there was a Iroshizuku ink called Yuyake. Was that it? That is sort of like a sunset color. I think that this ink comes closest to that ink that I know. Very fascinating. I love the way this shades, especially in the wetter pens. And it's a truly unique color. The word gold really applies here. So let's see if we can come up with a somewhat royal letter or character. K for king. How are we doing on wetness? Dry enough. There we go. Second pass. Let's do a little bit of medium writing. Some more golden writing, and I think it's also very much time for that moment you have all been waiting for, the Tardif test. Followed, of course, by the one and only Brown Benchmark. That was pretty disappointing, I think. But okay, I'm going to cap this vial. Then we have, yes, that is dry, the bastard brush. And before I forget, the third pass. Alright, so that's one thing. You see the nice shading in the Tardif test, I think, from this sort of light, almost yellowish orange to a much deeper orange. I find it a very fascinating ink. And I think that while we are waiting the drying of that letter so that I can pour some water over that with the eyedropper of death, we can already start to look at the scorecard. Cleaning. Well, to be honest, I don't think that's going to be any problem because it's a very light ink. Let me move. Sorry, had to move something out of the way there. Couldn't move the notepad. Yes. Bleed through. Now that is something that we have to assess later. Now we have the color, golden orange, I would say. We have shading. Shading, I would say, is, well, it's not a patchy sunset, but it's definitely a lot of shading. I'm going to give it full marks anyway. Flow. Flow is good. I have no issues with it whatsoever. Feathering is something that we have to assess after we've seen copy of paper. Drying time, well, it doesn't seem to be excessively wet, doesn't seem to be super dry either, so something in the middle. And then we have waterproofness. and that is slightly dependent on what we're going to do next, which is of course the eyedropper of death. Okay, and we can already start to interpret this. The writing has become more illegible, but I do see it. I do still see it. It's not completely eradicated, which actually surprises me because it is such a very light ink. Now, if we get rid of the excess water there, then you see that the writing there has suffered a bit too, but it is still fairly legible. It is not the most legible of all, but I'm going to give this waterproofness a middle score. And I think we can move on to copier paper. Copier paper we have right here. I take my little shield, I take my pen, and again I start to write. Humpty Dumpty sat on a wall. Medium. I forgot the next line, but somehow he did fall. Broad. And all the king's horses, italic, and all the king's men, flex, could not put Humpty Dumpty back together. I was waiting for this. I was really trying to get this to railroad because it was doing very well. Again, so I would say the flow of this ink is very good, because even with a lot of flexing and writing very fast, you do actually have to work on getting it to railroad, which is quite nice. Now we have a bit of fat writing, which might as well be fat drawing. This is Humpty Dumpty on a wall with all kinds of cracks because he fell off the wall. And when I say cracks, I don't mean cocaine that you can smoke. I mean something completely different, because Humpty Dumpty apparently was an egg. These are his legs, and he sits on the wall. You see? Yes. Maybe he's even wearing a nice little hat, and he has hands with which he can wave, because he loves Inkcyclopedia. HD. Humpty Dumpty. That's actually what it stands for in those televisions too, HD. Alright, so that all looks pretty good. Now I want to know... Pretty good? It looks pretty well. Bloody hell. How are we doing on feathering? Well, feathering seems to be very much under control. Look at this. This is bold writing. It works perfectly fine. Italic writing works perfectly fine. Here we start to hit some trouble. But this is flex writing, copier paper, almost every ink is going to do this, right? Even with the very fat writing, there seems to be very little feathering going on, except for the bits where a lot of ink accumulates. So I think that is all fairly impressive, to be entirely honest. Bleed through is significant for the flex writing, for the very fat writing. For the normal writing, you see some bleed through with the broad, maybe just a little bit here and there with medium, but that seems very much under control. Fine is definitely under control. Italic seems to be under control. And on the Rhodia paper it's the same thing. Triple passes with a 6mm nib you will see, and then you'll see stuff here, and there are a lot of ink, but in the regular writing there's pretty much no bleed through except for maybe this bit with the flex writing. So I'm inclined to say that bleed through is at least a score of 2, and feathering I actually find that fairly impressive, because you really need to push it on copier paper with flex writing, and pretty much everything else seems to do very well. That means that we have an inkage of 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8, 10. And what remains is a little bit of a comparison with another ink. And I think I found an ink. It was very difficult. I don't have that many orange inks. So here you have this Sheaffer King's Gold, which again has turned brown all of a sudden. What the heck is going on there? Just squeezing out a bit there. Yeah, that looks better. Okay, and then what I came up with in the end, it's not an ideal comparison, but it's what I came up with. Here you have Private Reserve Shoreline Gold, the new formulation. Which also has some shading. But as you can see, it's a much darker orange. It's more towards the red end of the spectrum than it is towards the yellow end of the spectrum. And that's pretty much the best I could make of this. So, we're talking about a vintage ink here, which means that you must save every bit you can get, which means that I'm going to empty this converter into my sample vial. Then draw up those drops. Right, we have to save this for posterity. There you go. I hope this was useful. I thank the gracious person who donated this so that it could be put into Inkcyclopedia. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you later. Bye bye.